build a full stack burn stack application with Passport to do authentication and everything. Just for you guys to kind of walk you through some of the things that we're gonna be exploring. So one thing I'll be using for that, I'll be using something called Express Generator. And what this is a really popular package to really get a very basic Express template going on. So all you do is you install it globally. You can choose different template engine. So I'll use that one as a starting point. So I'll just go ahead and do that. And I'll call this one Burn App Authentication. And that should go ahead and install that Burn app for me. And then I can open that within my editor. Let's see what I have. Cool. And we have something like that. Very basic, nothing complicated. This is my technically server.js, but they just name it app.js. What I'll do here is I'll start doing a couple changes. Number one, I'm a big ES6 fan, so we'll replace all of these guys by cost. And then number two, we don't need these for now, so we'll go ahead and delete those. And I think that should be everything that we need. And the other thing we'll do while this is processing, I'm gonna go ahead and create a React application. So I'll do create React app.
Excuse me, are you finally recording or not?
Yes, actually, all of the beginning are recorded. I think all the way to the local storage will be recording, but whenever we start getting into the Twitter, the Google authentication, then we'll stop the recording for security reasons. But yes, all of these are being recorded, correct. So I'll go ahead and create a React application using the create React app while this is processing. So I'll do a couple of things. Number one, I don't want the view folder because I'm not doing a handlebar session. So we'll go ahead and remove that. And then number two, I don't need the public folder because it's gonna be a React application. There's no need for me to have my JavaScript in there. So I'll go ahead and delete that as well. And that should be everything we need. Okay. So let's see what we have so far. We have, I don't need this one. Okay, and I don't need that configuration anymore because I don't have view. And I don't need that. Okay. And then what else? Yeah, that seems to be fine. Fantastic. Cool. And let's see. And lastly, I don't need this one also. Cool. All right, my server looks good. Let me test that out. So if I do npm start, oops, hold on, let's see what's happening here. Oh, because I didn't do npm install first. Okay, got it. The error started very early. So when I use the Express generator, I need to do npm install for it to install all the packages. So I didn't do that. So that should go ahead and install all the packages that my server need. And that should go ahead and install the Create React app application. All right, so while this whole process is going on, there's a lot of installation just for us to get started. And I wanted to make sure that I started from scratch, just for you guys to see the whole starting point, not just like having a template and trying to explain you. I wanted you guys to have that starting point too as well. All right, so if I do npm start, that should at least start my server. And I think my server is starting on port, not this one. Let's try that. I think 3000. Okay. Of course, we don't have an engine yet. That's fine. But if I go to start that again, and if I go to route user, I think I have something here called user. So if I go to /user, oops. Yep, so we spawned with resource, so that works. My server route is working, so that's good. One last thing I'd like to do is, I don't like their bin folder, so I'm gonna go here and remove that. And I'm just gonna edit these files to just, instead of having that, so I'll do app.listen. This is just me being fancy. All of this is me setting my server up. So I'll say server is listening on port, and then we'll define the port here, and then by default we'll go to port 8080, and then lastly we'll also define our console log here as well. Cool. So now if I load this one here, hold on, let's update our npm. Instead of this one, we're gonna use nodemon to always restore our app file. So we do app.js, but we need that. But if I now do npm start, that should technically be able to start my server. Yes. And if I go now to port 8080, oops, come on. Yes, it is working. Cool. So we adding that one just for simplicity's sake, and that looks familiar. Second thing, I think by now my React application is good. So let's connect our React application with the backend. So I'll go here. Again, I'm gonna fly through this because this is not the expectation, but I just want to show you guys how I spend some time kind of setting them up for you guys to see. So we'll connect this one with our server. And this one, our server is on port 8080, and what that means is we are referring to that particular port. So we'll set a proxy to proxy all the requests that the client is sending. So that should be good. And now, second thing, I'd like to, whenever I start my one command to start both of the applications. So I'll do hey run nodemon for that. And I'm gonna go cd inside the client, and once I am inside the client, I'm gonna do npm start. So that should start both of the application. Again, we don't need to use something like concurrently here. There's no point. I just want something quick. So if I do npm start, that should go and start both of the application at the same time. And let's see. Come on, where's the React server? Come on. So that should run nodemon. And after that, it should go ahead here and cd into the client. And then after it's cd into the client, it should go ahead and do that. All right, it did do that. Okay, so hold on. So let's try that again. Yep, so that should start my server. Let's try that. So that should start my server. And then cd into the client. And then go here and do npm start into the client. So that did not do that. Let's find out why. So if I try that, cd into my client and do npm start. So my client starts. Yep. But I want it to be both. Okay. What I'll do is this. I'm gonna do it differently. So I'm gonna cd into the client, and once I'm inside the client, I'm gonna do npm starts, and then after that, so I'll do nodemon app.js. Let's try that. Okay. So that's starting my React application. Okay. Let's make sure our server starts as well. Come on. Alright, so that's my React application. Where's my server? Godly, okay, that's starting picking. So I cd into the client. Once I am inside the client, I do npm start. So let's try that. Let's try to run them in parallel. So let's save that. Which package JSON am I in? Yep, I'm in the right one. Alright, we're gonna try it one more time. If that doesn't work, then we're just gonna have to use something like concurrently. So that should run them in parallel. Stop my React application, and then stop my server. Okay, I guess that didn't work. All right, let's try that. So if I refresh that, does it still work? No, it didn't. All right, so let's just, for now, let's just start both of them separately for the sake of this, and then we'll figure that out in a second. All right, so I'm gonna go here and start my...
You don't need to do npm ram star, and do just npm star.
I'm sorry, which one?
When you go to the ejection, you don't need to say npm run star in the 6.
You're talking about this one?
In the number 6, yeah, in the number 6.
Number 6?
No, when you were doing before.
Okay, this one?
No, when you were this, yeah, is run start. It's not this.
No, this should be. This should try to do the following. This should try to
Yeah.
go to the client.
And then go npm
Stop.
run.
Oh, you're saying like that? Okay.
Run. I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I think.
Let's try it.
I had this in the past.
Okay, let's try that. So if we do this, that should try to run both of them. If not, we can use concurrently, but concurrently we're gonna have to install another package, and I don't want to go through this whole crap. Okay, I guess not. All right, that's fine. We're just gonna run them separately for now.
Okay.
And then once and then we can figure that later if we have the time. Okay, so this one I'm gonna sit into the client and I'm gonna do npm start. Okay, so that should start both of our server running locally. Okay. Now, for the sake of this, before we start doing any passport stuff, I'm gonna go into the client and do one thing. What I'll do is I'll just create a couple basic components. Again, the whole reason I'm doing this from scratch and I'm running through this is for you guys to see the setup. There isn't anything that I missed. You guys will see in the flow. So there's gonna be a login.jsx, and I'm also gonna set dashboard.jsx, and lastly I'm gonna set signup.jsx. And then the other thing I like to do is what else? Yep, that should be it. And then here I'm gonna bring React. And I'll bring React here. That's all seems to be familiar by now. And I'll bring this component, and then here I'm gonna go ahead and export default class. I'm gonna call this one sign up, extend it from the component, and then and then I'll just go ahead and use the render function here. And after that, this is going to be some JSX, so I'm just going to return something very basic like find the sign up component. And then we're going to save that. We're going to do the same thing for everything, such as this one is the dashboard. And then I'm going to go here and do the dashboard as well. And lastly, login. So I'll do login, and I'll go ahead and do that as well. And then copy that. Copy, and then paste the same thing for the profile. And then this one's going to be profile. Again, these are just set up for now. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and do the app and paste this one in there. And we're just going to replace this one with app. And then we should be able to see something like that. And if we bring our application to port localhost, we should be able to see our app component ready to go. Okay, cool. Alright, so our front end now is technically almost done. The only thing I want to wrap up with my front end would be to probably integrate the React router. So I'll go ahead and install a couple packages. Number one is React router DOM, and number two is I also will install Axios. I'll be using Axios for that. And then as the React router is being installed, so I'm going to go here and get a couple of things. The first thing that I want to configure my router. So I'll do React router DOM. So I'll bring a couple of things here. So I'll do browser router. So we'll do browser. We'll rename this one as router. So we'll bring the router, and then we'll also bring the switch statement. Lastly, we're gonna set this like that, and then we'll set this one to be equal to the router. And then cool, and then what we'll do is we're going to bring these two components in there, move this one over here, and down there we'll set up a couple routes starting with path, and then we'll set component, and that's one we're just going to build it a very dummy component for now. We're just going to go here and create a very simple DOM component. So very basic, nothing complicated, and I'm just going to say come on. We'll say header component, and we're just gonna render this one right there. So we'll render the header. That's going to be the home page, And then the other thing I'd like to do, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and bring this other component like this. So I'll bring all these 4 components. I'm gonna bring them inside the app so that I can render them. I think they're inside component, and then profile, and then I'll do the same thing for the dashboard. So I'll do dashboard, and then the other one I'll do is login, and lastly but not least, I'll do a sign up, and then here, just gonna go here, and this one's gonna be yeah, this one's gonna be profile. So I need a home one as well. Sorry guys, let's create a home one. That JSX, and then we'll copy that, a lot of copy and paste, and then home, oops, and we'll do that right here. And lastly but not least, we'll go here and bring that one, oops, cool, and we'll get a free one. This one's going to be the home component, and then this one's going to be the profile component, and then this one's going to be the dashboard component, and then this one's going to be the dashboard, and then this one's going to be the sign up. So we'll paste this sign up in there, and sign up, come on. And then lastly but not least, we'll do the login, and this one's going to be the login. All right, so we got our routes ready to go, and I think that should be what we need to do in the backend for now. Not in the backend, in the front end. So we should stay here, and we're gonna move to the backend and really try to integrate Passport and kind of walk you guys to the backend and start with the integration with Passport. But this should be very basic for you guys. I just gonna go ahead and just went over it again, and we're gonna test that to make sure everything looks good. But so far, any questions? Everybody's good.
Yeah, I got a question. Do we need can we use a switch component? Why couldn't we? I mean, in the routing, why aren't we using a switch component if we got multiple paths?
That's actually a good question. Yes, we can do that. We're actually gonna use the switch component. You know what? I'll just go ahead and use not found.jsx, and then we'll set this one for, we'll base this not found, and then we'll make use of our switch component. So we're gonna wrap this one. So we'll do switch, and then we'll say, and the switch just technically behave just like an if statement, and we would move this one inside there. And lastly, we'll bring our 441 page, and then this one's going to be not found, and then what we do over there is we're just going to bring our 4 not found component. Cool. So switch statement is now using, and that should be pretty straightforward. Cool. So we'll be using that. So we're just saying, hey, if the first one matched, then just stop the program from executing right there. If it doesn't match, then continue going down the line and continue going down the line until we hit the 4-1 case. Cool. Any other question? Yeah. I think everybody's good. All right, so let's test that, and then we'll start straight into Passport. What we want to do is we want to make sure that at least the components are rendering the way that we think they are. And what I mean by this is if we go to the profile page, we should be able to see profile. Okay, so that looks promising. Please. Yes, it works. Oh God. And then if I go to full page, and I'm sending that down. Any questions so far? Everybody looks good on the front end side of things.
It's fine.
Cool. All right, so let's stop with the front end for now, and let's focus on the back end. And this is my back end terminal. What are the things that we need for Passport? Well, for Passport, if we take a look at the documentation, it's one of the most popular library, and it's interesting because the guy that built this library, he built it for it to be open source project, which means anybody can feel free to use this one for free. And the whole idea behind Passport is because there's different level of authentication that it's trying to take care of you behind the scene. And one example is whenever we were used to do authentication before, like such as an example of O(0). So O(0), let me write that down somewhere here. So different level of authentication. Uh, so there's different OAuth version, and what that means is it's just an extra layer of communicating. And this is the internet protocols of handling authentication. And what that means is that means that your server is sign a token, and then you use that token to do different things. Instead of getting the user password, then you get a token, and that token represent that the user is giving your application, or aka is giving you the right to do anything on their behalf. One example is, hey, if I give you a token of my Gmail account, with that token you can send emails inside my Gmail's account. With that token, you can respond to emails, you can read the token, you can read emails as and so many other things. So the token represent your password, but the cool thing about the token is it can be expired, or if it doesn't want to be expired, then the user can feel free to revoke it. And stuff like that. So in order to get this token, there are different level of authentication that you could do. You could easily use OAuth1, which requires a lot of boilerplates behind the scene just for you guys to get that working. And there's another one which actually the most the most coined version right now, which is OAuth0. Am I spelling that one? Like it's OAuth something. I don't remember the spelling of it, but OAuth0. And again, these two different level of authentication, if you were doing them by yourself, it would require a lot of boilerplates. So what Passport is trying to do for you is trying to take those different level of authentication based on the services that's using them and give you this nice looking and easy API for you to work with. Okay, we're gonna walk you guys through how that works. But one thing I'd like to mention here is the same guy that built this entire library, he's also the same guy currently working at OAuth0. So whichever places that you're using, of course, OAuth0 is a company that makes money out of different services. So the same guy that built Passportjs is the same guy that's building the OAuth0 and the OAuth2 integration for that company as well. And none of these might make sense for you guys, but just keep that in mind is before Passportjs or before OAuth0, doing authentication would require you to go this route. So you would have to learn OAuth1, or you have to learn OAuth2, and so on, so many one. One example of company that's currently still using OAuth0, it is Twitter. Twitter still using OAuth1. And then most of the company out there are using the latest version, which is currently OAuth2, and that's what a company like Gmail is using. All right, so how do we get started with Passport? Again, it is very simple to get started with it. All you need to do is they have what they call strategy, and strategy are different services that are available for you out there. You can find services for Gmail, Google, or any other places that you could possibly think of. And again, what the team does for you is they go into all these places that have different level of authentication. They don't care if it's OAuth1, they don't care if it's OAuth2, they just rewrite the code and make it a way that everybody can use that same pattern for all these different level of OAuth that they have. So for now, we're going to use the local strategy, and what that means is we're just gonna go ahead and use the very basic one that we'll need for the local version. So there is a strategy called local. If you just search for it, you can click on the first link that you see, and that should at least take you to their page. So to get started with that, we just go ahead here and install this package. And beside this, let me close the React application for now. I feel like this looks a little bit weird. All right, so beside the strategy that you need, you also need the core version of the app. And what that means is a Passport have different strategy, but they also have the core package that you need for every single strategy. And what that means is we need a package called Passport.js. And Passport.js, think about it as the main guy that will be configure your strategy for you. So without that package, you can't really work with any strategy. So this is the main package. We want that. And by the way, this is the guy that built the entire thing, currently making tons of money. His name is Jared Henson. He's in California right now, working for Orb0. But yeah, this is the type of decision that you do that's really helping a lot of people into the industry. So we need that core package. I'll go ahead and install that one. It's called Passport. Now, one thing I'd like to mention this is Passport work with a session, okay? And there are all ways that you can feel free to either use the session or not use the session. But again, a session is giving you the ability to know that, hey, this user has previously logged into your application. Because they have previously logged in, then we can choose to not allow them to log in. So we're going to also install another package. There's different sessions that we can use. If I want to list a couple, there's one called Express Session. In my opinion, I would not recommend you guys to use the Express Session. If you're building a RESTful endpoint, the one I would recommend to use is the Cookie Session. And the Cookie Session is the benefit about that Cookie Session is it send a cookie to the user browser, which means every single time that the user is coming back to the application, that data is stored into their browser, so it doesn't store into your server. So again, I'm really against the Express Session. I feel like if you're building a RESTful endpoint, you should not have any state remaining on your server. The best way for you to go around it is using Cookie Session, which you just send that data to the browser client, and that's what we're going to use for this session. We would definitely not use the Flash application. I see a lot of example online of, hey, you can use Flash to do this. In this particular case, there's no need to use that. I feel like it's really making the whole things complicated than it should be. So I would highly recommend it not to use it for any project moving forward. But if you feel comfortable too, feel free to use it. For this particular scenario, we're not going to use that because we're going to build Passport the way that we want it to be and have full control over it instead of Passport for them to have the control, but we're going to be the one that have full control over what we send to the client instead of having to redirect the user to somewhere else. So that's what we're going to try to do here, okay? All right, so I'm gonna bring that session here, and it's called cookie session, I think so. Yep. So we'll bring this package here, and just gonna copy the name of it. It's called Cookie Session. So come on, copy that. Cool. So that's gonna go ahead and install every single packages. While this is doing, I'm gonna go here and create a folder called Oops, come on, what happened? Remove that. Okay, so I'm gonna create a folder here called Passport, and I'll explain while I do this. Again, guys, I've seen a lot of examples online on, hey, you need to have this folder, this files, this and this and this here, and at the end of the whole session, you get lost in terms of, oh my, I don't even know where things are, or which things should I bring here, how should I connect them, how are they being connected and stuff like that. For this particular example, we're gonna put the whole Passport integration into its own folder. Like everything related to Passport is going to be for that particular folder. And one of the benefits about that is it can scale based on how many strategy that you want within your application, and you can just keep things into that specific folder every single time that you want to do some further changes into your Passport. And the other benefits about having it that way is, let's say later on you'd like to switch to a different web framework other than Express, right? You'd like to switch, then hey, I don't want to use Passport with Express, I want to use it into Koa, whatever other web frameworks that's out there. You'll have that flexibility for you to bring them over to any web frameworks that you want, and you can even build it to a point that you make it even like a plugin for other people within your team to use it. So we'll definitely use go ahead and do all the integration right here. So we put all the Passport integration right here, and all we're gonna do is export the main configuration that can be configured for wherever we need it. So we'll do that here. So I'll do local strategy.js, and I'm gonna create a index.js. That's gonna be where the main core functionality gonna be. I'm gonna call this one. That's gonna be the rename. So I'm gonna call this one sign up strategy, and I'm gonna call this one sign in strategy.js. And of course, we're gonna try to do Google strategy.js, and then you guys can feel free to have as many strategies as you want. You got the idea. Like, you can have as many other one as you have here, and you can make it, you know, however big that you guys want to. We'll do GitHub.js and so many other strategy that you guys have, and all your core Passport configuration could be under one folder, and all you need to do is just export the necessary piece and just bring that piece over and use it throughout your application. Okay, cool. So how do we start with our integrations? So I'm gonna go here inside the index.js. This is where I'm actually gonna do all the, give me 1 second here. This is where I'm actually gonna do every single configuration. Give me 1 second. I think I had an example. So I had this folder on this repo that I have. You guys can feel free to check it out. I'll also will select that repo out. I think it's a valuable repo, so why not share it with all of you guys. So I have this repo out there. It is a Passport example where you can technically set things up, and what that means is I know you guys use a lot of different databases, so this is a boilerplate example that allows you to just clone the repo, switch to that specific branch that you want, and you'll have a Passport configuration ready to go for you using either Mongo, either Mongoose, either SQLize, and either MySQL. All you need to do is clone that repo and then switch to the exact branch that you want, just in case you guys want to explore Passport. And it is under the MIT license. Let me make sure that I have that license. If I don't have it, I'll add it to make sure that it's free to use. You guys can feel free to do whatever you want with it. It is definitely something that is free. So definitely check that out. Again, what I'll use is I'll use that local version. Let's see. Handball HTML local, and there's even a handball example. So there's a lot of example that you guys can feel free to use here. So I'll slide that out in the chat, and I will also slide that out after the session as well. So I'm gonna use this example. This is my Passport configuration, and let's see what I have. So inside the Passport here, this is where I put all of these codes. So I'll go ahead and do that. So first, I'm gonna bring Passport here. So I'm going to bring the core. Actually, I can just look at the documentation. That might be best. All right, so here's Passport documentation. We're going to break it down. So what are the things we need? This one, we're going to keep it separate. And then, where is it? Yep. So the one we need is going to be the, not this one, strategy. Come on, Passport. Yep, so we are looking for, that's okay. So all we need is passport.use. Okay, cool. So we'll require Passport here. So we'll say require, and then we'll bring Passport. Again, we're keeping everything under one folder, so there is not like a lot of moving around. Okay, so we're gonna bring Passport here, and then here we're gonna import all the strategy that we want. So all the strategies, such as, hey, if I want the Google strategy, I'm gonna say bring the Google strategy right here. So we'll say require. And if you guys remember, the Google strategy is just one file that's here. So we'll say / Google strategy. And you can bring as many strategy as you want. So we'll say sign up strategy. And that's going to be the same thing as sign up strategy and stuff like that. So we can feel free to say the same thing here, sign in strategy. So we'll bring this same one here. And then we'll say sign in strategy, and you guys get the idea. Lastly, let's rename this file. We'll rename this one to be GitHub strategy. Okay, so we can bring this one here. We'll say we'll leave this one for now. Cool. And then once I have that, so I'll use this passport. Again, we're doing everything into just one file. So we'll do passport.use, and then we'll use the strategy that we want to use. For example, we could say this one's going to be local sign in, and we're going to pass it the sign in strategy right here. And this one's going to be the local sign up, and then we're going to pass it the sign up strategy here. Now we go in this is just the name that you give it. This could be anything. This could have just be sign in, but for the sake of this, we're just going to name this one to be equal to sign in. And I'm going to comment one strategy out because I don't have the code for that yet. So the only two we're going to use is this. And again, to work with this entire way that we are trying to architecture this passport integration, we keep one thing into one files and we just define our strategy. We bring them over, register them. Whenever we finish, then we just export that passport files. Pretty basic and super ready to go. So I think that should be the main job of these files. Bring passport, bring our strategy, configure them in, and export it. That's it. Bring our strategy, configure them, and export it. But now we want to be able to bring our strategy for our local setup. So we're gonna go to our local strategy. Let's see our local strategy. So this is one example of where they are defining that local strategy. So if you take a look at that example, all they need is this entire code. So we're gonna do the same thing. Let me see. Okay, so all this need, we're gonna copy this code and go to sign up strategy. So we're gonna say local strategy, and then we're gonna require that local strategy. I think it was passport local, and then that strategy, I think. And then we're gonna say we're gonna just call this one strategy. Then we're gonna say local strategy. Oops, strategy, and then we press that. Okay, cool. Let's just delete this function for it to not be confusing. So let's just delete this one for now, and then cool, we'll leave this one for here. All right, so the entire things that we're doing here is we bring in the specific strategy for that particular file. Like, hey, this is the sign up strategy. Okay, we're gonna bring that sign up strategy, and after we bring that sign up strategy, we're gonna define an instance of that strategy, and after we define that instance, then we're gonna go here and export this local strategy. And again, once we export that strategy, we're gonna bring that strategy here, and this is where we'll bring in that strategy and just register them right there. Now, before I move on, I'd like to just touch base with you guys before I do any testing or anything like that, just to really make sure that you guys are understanding the way that the file flow is working. Again, all we're doing is, hey, this is the sign up strategy. We're gonna define a strategy here, and then every strategy that will define, we'll bring in them here and then register them into our passport. Any question so far? Okay. How's everybody's feeling?
When you are doing with the sign in and sign up, you are going to use just email strategy, or is because you are doing? Because I understand you are doing different strategies, because you are going to use different modules.
Correct. So you asking, I'm not, can you say the question again?
Yeah, in the case of the local sign up, what you are doing is just using your own strategy, just email and password or something like this.
I'm not sure.
Because I did this in the past and I used just Google sign in.
Yeah.
Then it was very straightforward. But I don't understand what you are going to do with just this, with the sign in, sign up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with this one is, what this does here is this technically registered the strategy into Passport, right? And then we can register as many strategy as we want. Now, whenever we're ready to use the strategy, the way we use them is by just saying Passport authenticate, and then we pass it the name of the strategy that we want to use. In this case, this is going to be the name of the strategy, which is called local sign-in. So we can just say, hey, Passport authenticate, local sign-in, and then this, of course, take a callback of whatever you want to happen. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep things into one file so that whenever we're ready to use it throughout the code, every configuration could be in one file, and then the strategy themselves is into their own file, so that in case we want to extend the functionality, then we can extend it to however deep and long they could be. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other question? Cool. And before we proceed, does that at least make sense to everyone? If this makes sense for you guys, please type the word yes inside the chat. Just want to make sure that everybody's still following along. Okay, cool. All right, so the configuration of passport is gonna be there, like the main core configuration of registering the passport and everything is going to be there. Let's see. So we got the local strategy, and again, I'm gonna go over that, but this what it takes is it just takes a function. I'm gonna write the local strategy one. So the local strategy one, the way it works is once I define that local strategy, it takes a function. So I'm gonna pass that function, and this function take three params, which is username and then username, password, and then a callback. And here you can do all your logic here, such as what should be happening once user is signing up. Signing up. Again, if you get the username and password, what do you want to happen once the user is signing up? So all your database logics are going to be here in terms of, hey, I want to register the user and everything and stuff like that. But the strategy itself are not that intense. All they do is they take a callback and do this. So we're going to do the same thing for the sign in. So I'm going to copy the same code except the same strategy. This one's going to be, let me rename this one to be, instead of local, I'm going to call this one sign up. Sign up strategy, export that, cool. And this one's going to be login strategy, so I'm going to export that, cool. And then I'm just going to copy should I just copy that for now? Let's see. No, we need the database. All right, cool. That's fine. So we're gonna try to integrate Mongoose just for you guys to see that in action. So let's get that done. So I'm gonna install Mongoose. I wish I had that set up. That could have saved a bunch of time. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and do that. And then, because we really mean to do this whole thing from scratch. See if we can build that whole thing within 2 hours. All right, so I'll bring Mongoose. I'm already installing that. I'm just gonna copy some boilerplates here. So I'm gonna copy that, copy this code, and then put it somewhere in here. And then I'm gonna bring this one somewhere close here, and I'm gonna say this one's gonna be my authentication, something like that. Authentication example. So that's gonna be my example. And then the other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to create a model folder, and then within that model folder, this is where I'm going to be creating a user.js model. And godly, how do you create a model? Yep, that's how you create a model. I always forgot. All right, so I'm going to paste this one in there, and I think this one's going to be user. So we're just going to do Mongoose. Mongoose that define, oops, thank you, yep, and then we'll define that user, and we'll pass the user schema. We don't have that yet, so and then after that, we're just gonna go here and export that user, and here's all the user schema, and then this one, we also is gonna have username and password, and then this one's just gonna be a string for now, and we can delete this. I think that should be our model for now. We don't need that. So our model, pretty basic. And the other thing I also would like to save into our model, probably email. We can do some sort of validation, but for the sake of this, we're just gonna leave this for now. Very basic. All right, so we have something very basic for our model. We got a user schema that accepting the username and password and email, and then we are defining our model here. Now, again, the local strategy, which is the sign up local strategy, all this is doing, this is gonna by default whenever we call Passport, and I'm gonna show you guys how we can call Passport. But whenever we call Passport, this should call the username and password, and then we can use our database here. So I'll bring our user schema. So I'll do require. I think it's one level down. Go to model and get that user. So, all right. So let's test that. Okay. In order to test this, again, let's see what we have. So this is where we're doing all the configuration. This is where Passport is happening. So to use Passport into Express, all we need to do is if we go back into the app.js, I'll show you. Oops. No, I didn't want to use that. So to use Passport now inside Express or any other framework, how easy it would be is this. So first thing first, I need to go to Express and bring, if you guys remember, I put everything into one file. So I need to go to that folder called Passport and bring the index. So I'm going to do Passport. So I'll do, it's inside of Passport. And by default, the index gonna be coming, so I don't need to do index.js. So by default, this will bring the index. And now to register it into Express, let's see the configuration here. To register them into Express, all I need to do is do the following: do passport.initialize and then passport.session. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll do passport, no, not app.use, and then call the passport.initialize. And then for now, we're not going to use a session yet. And then we'll do passport.session. And I'm going to comment that out. Yeah, so to use it with Express, all you need to do is bring that particular file, which is index.js, and just call index.initialize. That's how easy it is. You know how super easy this is. Everything got stuck into one particular case, and all you're focusing on is, hey, this is the main core configuration. You're setting your strategy, and then once you set up your strategy, you bring them here, you register them, and then you're good to go. All right, so we got the Passport things configured, like it is done. Now, how can we call Passport in order for Passport to authenticate a user? Well, in order to call Passport for Passport to authenticate the user, I'm gonna replace this one with cost. All right, in order to call Passport for Passport to authenticate a user, what we're going to do again, every time we need the Passport, we just need to go to that folder. Like anytime you need Passport, you just need to go to that folder. So I'll go to that Passport. I'll say Passport, and I'm gonna go into one level up. I think it's Passport. Cool. So I go to that particular folder, and to authenticate a user, so I'll do passport.authenticate, and then the name of the strategy, which in this case is gonna be sign up, and then I believe this one takes a callback and then passes your callback. So this is how Passport going to work in order for us to start using it. Okay. All right. So what do we want to happen? We want to have a couple route instead of an app. So that's going to be post, and this one's going to be sign in. And I'm going to also have another one that's going to be sign in. That's going to be sign up. Okay. So this one's going to be the one that we use to sign the user up. The only difference, instead of it taking this function, is going to take passport.authenticate and then the name of our strategy. And if you guys remember, whenever we were configuring our strategy, this is how we give them the name. So this is the name of our strategy called local signup. So we'll go here and do local signup. And then I believe this one takes an object. And this object, oops, I think I'm missing something. Yep, probably this one. Yep. So this object takes success redirect, which means whenever the things is successful, we can redirect them to different places. And then it also take fail redirect, which means whenever the error fails, we can feel free to redirect the user back to wherever we want it. Or we can say the home page, whatever. And then lastly, take something called session. If you guys remember, we're not using a session. So if you're not configured, again, the session is default. And what I mean by this is this function. So if you don't want to use a session, like you don't want persistent login into your application, then you can disable that by just doing session false, and that's gonna technically stop using the session. So the session is optional by default. If you don't have that value, by default, Passport is going to expect you to use a session. This is how Passport is going to work. All right. So by now we should be able to test it. Oh God, I'm really like, I hope it works. All right, by now we should be able to test it. But before that, let's review everything we talk about, okay? Anytime we want to use Passport, we have one place to go. And that place to go is the Passport folder. So once we go to that Passport folder, we bring the index files, and then we can start using different function on that Passport. One function we're using is Passport authenticate, and we're gonna do once we hit that strategy, we're gonna do the following, okay? And I'm gonna show you the limitation of why this is wrong or compared to work with something with React, and we're gonna override that together. But before that, let's test it. What is the best way to test that? Well, the best way to test it is by using breakpoints. I'm not expecting you guys to know how to use breakpoints, but for the sake of this, I'm going to use breakpoint, and the reason being is because I can start server.js and app.js, and the reason being is because I can stop the server at a particular point within my application. So whenever the user go to specific things, then I can stop it and kind of show you guys the things that the Passport is hidden, so that we can all see how it's working. Okay. All right, so I have my breakpoints set up. Let's make sure my server is not running. It is not running. And the way I'm gonna run my server now is by clicking this play button. So when I click that play button, it should start my server. My server is now starting. And what oops, something wrong. Mongoose is not defined. I think somebody was mentioning that in the chat. So let's figure out Mongoose situation here. Yep, I didn't have Mongoose, I think. Yep, so I'll do Mongoose. That was a database issue. So we'll bring Mongoose. And what else? Let's see. So let's start it again. Any error? Come on, please work. All right, we got another error. So Mongoose that defined, somebody mentioned that. It's Mongoose. Wait, let me see. So you need to use Mongoose.model. Okay, got it. That's SQLized. God, I was using SQLized for Mongoose. All right, so let's start it again. That's my son's comment. All right, please work, no error. Okay, we got another error. All right, what else? So local strategy is not defined. That's inside the Passport configuration. So we got a lot of undefined issue. That was just thing that I missed. So let's see. Sign up local. What is this? So that's inside the Passport sign up strategy. So that's inside the Passport sign. Wait. We no longer have local strategy. What we have is strategy. Godly. Oh boy, it might be the same thing inside the sign up. Yep, we don't have local strategy. We have strategy. It's just misspelling from my end, guys. Nothing that we did wrong. Okay. Please, do I have any misspelling? Yes, our server starts. All right, time to test. Okay, how do we test this? Okay, so here's how. Oh, did somebody have a question? I think somebody was saying something. All right, so time to test this. How are we going to test this? Here's how we're going to test it, okay? So we're going to go inside the routes, not inside the route, inside our strategy, the sign up strategy. And I'm going to add a breakpoint here just for you guys to, can I add a breakpoint here? Come on. Come on. God, sorry, I'm just going to add a value here, but just a very simple value. User, and I'm going to add a username, something like that. Very basic. And I'm going to reload my strategy. And now, come on, reload it. And then start my server, and please add one here. Really? I can't. Come on. There you go. Finally. Okay. I add a breakpoint here. Okay, finally. So I add a breakpoint right there. So what I'm expecting to happen is this, okay? So whenever I go to that route, where's the route? So whenever I go to the post route, which calls sign up, I'm expecting my breakpoints to stop at this strategy. Okay, this is where I want it to stop. That's the point right there. And after it stopped right there, then I can continue with my database in terms of saving the user to the database, encrypting their password, and doing everything that behind the scene. But for now, to make sure that my passport configuration is working is, hey, whenever I hit this route, I want the user to stop right there. That's what I'm expecting to see. Okay, for this one, I'm gonna open Postman, and then I know you guys, after showing you an easy way, after showing you something here, you can have an idea what you were missing for a React series. All right, so let's try that. So how can we test that? So we're gonna open Postman for this. Okay. All right. So if I open that, I'm gonna open a new route. So I'm gonna open http://localhost 8080, and this is a post request. If you guys remember, it was under sign up, so that's the route right here. All right, let's make sure that we add that right there, and I'll close that. Okay, cool. So if I add into something to the body, such as what they're expecting, so I'll do username. That's what passport is expected by default, and then passport, and then password 1 2 3 4 5. Cool. All right. So if I click that, okay, any error? Let's open and see what's up. Nothing yet. Did I write the right? Did I misspell this? Oh, yeah, I did. Godly. I was like, what? Okay. So we did misspell that. We did misspell the slash. Okay, we got an error. That's fine. Oh, cannot post to that route. So maybe my server is not on that port. So let's find out. So port 8080. Oh, yeah, because it has /user. All right, so let's replace this one by authentication, something like that. And what this means is this is just a prefix. If you guys are using the express router, so this is a prefix for every single route that you have. So I'll add that prefix right there. Cool. So let's try that. Okay. Authentication. Oh, wait. I think it's localhost that. Oh, God, why am I missing that? So localhost column 8080. All right. There you go. Whew. All right. Check this out, guys. This is a beauty. My breakpoint stop inside the strategy, which means whenever I call this function, I'll show you. Where is it? The route. Yep. There you go. So whenever I call this function, and this is the function right there, you guys can see. All right. So whenever I hit this route, I'm using Passport to say, hey, somebody hit this route. Let's try to authenticate them. Okay. When we call this route, this is a way of saying, hey, we want to authenticate the user. And we say, all right, we have a tons of strategy, but let's make sure that we are trying to authenticate them under that strategy. So this is the strategy that we're trying to authenticate the user on. And if you guys remember, we registered different strategy here. So this is where we register different strategy. The one we're trying to get is this one. We said, all right, buddy, somebody hit that route. Let's try to talk to that strategy. And whenever we're trying to talk to the strategy, it's going to go to that strategy, which is this one, and start processing all this requests. And if we over that that data right there, you see I'm getting whatever I sent. So the username is actually equal to the data that I sent here, which is pretty cool. And the password is actually equal to the password as well. So far, what we were able to test to make sure that it's working, it is working. But check this out. When I click play, it doesn't. How can I describe it? The request is still hanging. Like you see here, the request is still loading. So it's not finished. This request, it is not completed. It is still loading, waiting for something to execute until it times out. So we're gonna fix that. But before we go and fix this one, any questions about how this is working? Or if everything makes sense, this is your chance for you guys to say yes or no as we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. Sounds like you guys are killing it. Okay, let's get one more and we'll proceed. Yes, so breakpoints, it's a little bit interesting, and if you are a professional developer, then you definitely need the breakpoints. Yes, this port is being working correct. Uh, the way the breakpoints work, it allows your code to stop at a specific point, and when it stops at that specific point, then you can inspect. You can inspect different other values that you guys can think about, right? Such as whenever I hit this route, you see, my breakpoint stop right there, and if I over that, I can see the value that are coming in, and I can over that as well, which is pretty cool and fantastic. There's one thing I like to talk here. There's one issue. If I click pay, the first issue is we're not seeing something back, but we want to send something back to the client, because whenever the React application is going to hit us or going to touch base to our server, they're going to expect at least something back or a sign saying that this user has authenticated. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to let the process continue and execute. Again, you see it takes three parameters here. The first one are the value that are coming in, and the second one is a callback. And the callback, it is going to be the guy that's going to say, hey, all right, we hit whatever things you needed to do to make sure that the user is authenticated. It's done. Then how do you want me to proceed? Like, how do you want me to proceed? Should we throw an error, or should we throw a successful message? Again, now there's something here that's important, okay? So if we go back to the route, not this one, if you go back to the route, there's something here that's really, really important and very, very interesting. The done is going to be the guy that's going to tell this route, this function, how should it proceed? Should it run this code, or should it run this code? Or should, whatever it needs to happen. So the done is going to be the decision that will tell it to either execute success or either tell it to execute fails or redirect. So the done is the middle guy that's going to make the decision. Now this done takes a total of 3 param. The first one is an error. If there is an error, if you pass something here, either an object, you're saying, hey buddy, there is an error, and by default is going to execute the failure. So whenever you say, hey, done has an object or maybe a message, something like that, it's going to something happened. It's going to interpret that as an error. However, if you don't want an error, we can send the word null, which means, hey buddy, there is no error. There is no error. Instead, everything is successful, and then this one is going to you can also send some extra data about the user and stuff like that. So you can send such as the username and such other data that you query from the database and so many other things. So the bottom line is this done thing is very important in terms of making the final decision on how this passport authenticates function should proceed. So I'm going to show you both cases. I'm going to show you when there is an error. And the last one is maybe some extra data that you want to pass to the authenticate function. You can pass some extra data that you want. A lot of people use this one for Flash, but we're just going to use the first two. So I'm going to show you two cases. I'm going to show you the first one, which there is an error. We're going to say, oops, something happened. So we're not going to use the Flash, but the Flash thing is a way to technically share data across different routes. For example, if you have a sign-up route, you can get the data from the Flash over this route. So Flash is a way to share data across multiple routes and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna say, all right, here's what I'm doing. I'm saying, oops, there's an error. Please run this function. And this one's saying that, second object is empty. So I'm gonna reload my breakpoints and then hit this one again. So you see, so I'm getting the username, and if I continue that, it's going to receive something. But check this out here. You see, I'm getting this error back from Passport. It's saying, oops, something happened. Of course, it's trying to redirect, but because we're using Postman, that's why you guys seeing this entire HTML part of it. But if you were using template engine, you would just render it with the error or something, or redirect it to a different page, maybe to your sign up or something like that. But this is a way to show you that this function here, like this one, is the one that fires. What about there wasn't any errors? If there wasn't any error, I can set this one to null, and here I can send a message such as user sign up, something like that, very basic. And if I would load my breakpoints again, and I'm gonna hit that endpoint here. Oops, sorry, it was reloading. So hit it again. There you see, it hit that route, and then I send a successful message. You see, it sent something different, but the whole aspect of this, what this is trying to do, let me see if I see any error here. Yeah, so the whole aspect of this, the reason it's throwing an error is because we're trying to, and this is where things are going to be important, guys. Okay, let's try to explain that. Okay, so here's one of the most confusing part, and one of the reasons that getting Passport working with React, it is so confusing, because if you're looking at an example like this is expecting you to have a template engine. Like when the user successfully log in, it's expecting you to have an engine configure into Express, like something like, maybe you render an HTML or something like that. But React doesn't let Express handle the routes. Okay, the routes in React is not being handled by Express. And we're not rendering any HTML on Express yet. What we really want to do, like this is what I'm trying to do, okay? What I really am trying to do here is I want this to send a JSON. I don't want it to redirect. So I don't want this to redirect. I don't want none of this crap to happen. All I care about is I want it to send a JSON back. Like I want this to send a JSON back, because so far we saw that, hey, based into whatever we want to send, we can handle different cases. We can handle when there is an error, and we can also handle when there is not an error. But how can we send a JSON back? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is where custom Passport callback comes into place. What we're going to try to do here is this: we write this entire code, because we're not redirecting them. What we want to send to React or whichever other services that's using our platform, we want to send them a JSON response back. Okay, so for that, I'm gonna write an ES6 function, and we're gonna take these two param, rest next. I can leave that for now. And this one here, you see, so once you hear, you technically have something that sounds familiar to what you guys been doing. The only difference is I'm going to use passport.authenticate, and this time I'm going to use two parentheses here. This is important. The first one takes a callback. Okay, so the first one here takes a callback. The second one takes whatever the request object and the response object is coming in. So I'm going to pass this one here. And of course, if you guys were sending something else, such as the rest and next, you could do the following as well. But we're just gonna send them the response and the response. Okay, this is getting a little bit interesting. Now, this one takes three param. This one takes the error that is coming in. This one takes the user message that is coming in, and this one takes the info. So technically, where's my sign up thing here? So technically, this three parameter is actually equal to these how many ever parameter that you pass here. You can pass a third one if you want to, but these three parameter that you have here are referring to this that's coming here. And here you can do the following. You can say, hey, if there is an error, then we're gonna send a JSON back. We're gonna send a status 400, and then we're gonna say something like, we're gonna send an error message back, and then we're gonna say message, oops, something happened. And then here you can set the error that's coming in. You can probably send the entire error as well. Error that message. We can set a default one in case that we don't have any error. So we can probably say internal server error, just in case we didn't see anything. And then you can probably stop the execution of the code right there. Now, if there is no error, then this is when you're gonna send something back to React. In this one, we're using Postman, but I'm gonna show you how this one is doing. So we're gonna send something back here saying, user is now authenticated, something like that. And then you can send status or whatever. We're just gonna keep this one for now. And then we can make sure that we return that. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our custom callback. This is how it works. This is, again, you can do even further logic here, but this will allow you to send JSON back to your React application, and based into whenever you get those JSON back, then you can make some further decisions. So if I reload that and then test my endpoint, we should be getting some JSON back this time. So let's try. Okay, next is not a function, so probably I need to also get the next, and then I'm gonna send the next to the React application, to the passport one as well. So instead of sending just these two, I'm gonna send next as well. All right, so I guess it's required. Okay, so if I try that, oops, unknown authentication strategy or function. So we're getting an error here. The user is now authenticated. Okay, we got an error, so let's try that. I'm gonna go here and search for oh, did I? Oh yeah, I think I did. Okay. I think that was it. Yep, I think I did still do. Yep, I think that was the issue. Thank you. There you go. That's why I want you guys here. Cool. All right. All right, so let's try that. Yeah, it works. Thank you guys. You guys are killing it. And then now if I hit that, I'm gonna add another breakpoint here to show you guys like when it's hitting this one, okay? So we got this one is saying there is no error, and then we're gonna send a message that the user is signed up. So if we do that, you see, it hits this point and say, hey, there is no error. Because there's no error, we're gonna continue, and this time it hit this endpoint, and we're gonna send something back, and boom, ladies and gentlemen, we got a JSON response back. Let's try it when there is an error. So I'm gonna send an error. I'm gonna change this one to be an error. So I'm gonna say, hey, this one I'm gonna say validation fail, something like that, and I'm gonna set this one to null. And if I will load that, I'm gonna actually just add a breakpoint right here. So I'm just gonna add, yeah, add the breakpoint right there. Cool. And if I hit this one, we're sending an error. And you see, it hit this endpoint, it breakpoints, and it hit this one. It checked. You see, it gets this error, and it knows that there is an error. And because there is an error, then it's gonna send this message back to whichever places that's using it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Passport custom callback. Any questions so far? All right. If this is making sense for everyone, this is your chance, because from this point we're gonna go super fast, okay, to get our backend ready for the React to handle that thing. If there is no question, this is your chance to type yes. If there is any question, this is your chance to type your questions or no. We can kind of review it and talk about things that might not make sense for you. But at this point, I'm gonna go super fast because the core logic of getting the authentication done We're going to explain it, but this is something that we're going to assume that makes sense for you guys. Please type yes. We got one yes. Let's make sure we got one more yes before we proceed. Okay, cool. Okay, so one last thing I'd like to show you guys is this, okay? Let's say you wanted more information from the user, such as you wanted the about message to be, hey, I am a full stack developer, and stuff. So you wanted to send more information to the user so that you can save. You're talking about, are you referring to this? Okay, cool. So this one will go to the passport function. So this will go to the passport authenticate function, and behind the scene, they're using those request object to read the username and password from passport. So by default, this is what they're using to kind of know, hey, we're getting the username and stuff like that, and then process it and do some further things on their end. And one thing they're using Express MailerWare, so that's one of the reasons that they're using Next to kind of let the user know to go to the next route and stuff like that too. So these requests we send into passport authenticate function, which took those and then process the request. Does that answer your question, Julia? Cool. Oh no. You can feel free to unmute your mic. Maybe I'm on mute. Talk if that's worked better for you.
Yeah, sorry, almost. The callback to authenticate, does that happen before or after the strategy is invoked?
No, the authenticate happened before. So the authenticate is the one that's calling the strategy.
Specifically, no, not the dot authenticate, but the callback to the dot.
Oh, the callback happened after the strategy. So this function here is technically this callback right there. Oh, sorry, just this one, yeah. So this callback is technically the done. So this is where it's happening. So the strategy happened first, and then this is where this callback get executed.
Okay. So then, when you're passing in the request response in next in line 21, where does it go from there? Does it go back into the root to whatever you have after the middleware is done?
Yes, correct. So if you this one will be sent to the authenticate function that Passport using, and then based into what they're doing, then they go. You can this parameter that you're passing. This is a way that you can use to end the request right there inside the authenticate callback. Cool. All right. Yes, I can do that, Isabel. I'll make sure that I zip or I'll push it to GitHub and send that out to you guys. All right. So we're going to proceed. One thing I'd like to mention here is, let's say you wanted to send extra data to your sign-up, because sometimes when you're signing up the user, you might need some extra information, not just the username. Now, by default, Passport is only expecting this field value. Like, this is what they're expecting. So what we can do in this case, inside our strategy, we can add another param, an object, and then this one, I think it accepts something called pass request to callback. And I think this one expect true or something. I don't know the value. We're gonna find out. I love this finding things out on. But this one, I believe it expect a balloon called true. If not, we can check that out. But what this means is this going to pass this entire request object that are coming in. And if we want to get the about object, then we can feel free to bring the about by saying, I think, and then also this one gonna take the request here. So this is where the request is coming in. So now we can say about is gonna be equal to the request on that body, that about, something like that. And then that should give us the about object in case you guys want to get extra data on when the user signed up. So if we test that, hit that endpoint, now if we check the about, you see, and now I'm getting those data as well. So this is just a way to get extra data from Passport in case you wanna send. Again, you can feel free to go all crazy, but this is just a way for you to do that. All right, so for this logic, I'm gonna just go ahead and copy some code. and technically, yep, copy some code, and then I'll walk you guys through what the code is doing. Because once you got the username and password, and I'm gonna install one package as well. So I'm gonna stop my breakpoints. Actually, yep, I'm gonna stop my breakpoints and I'm gonna install a package called bcrypt. And bcrypt is a way to encrypt the user password. Godly bcrypt JS. There's different version. I think there's one that also support Windows. Just keep that in mind. I'm not sure. I'm sure Julia can tell you which one, but I don't remember which one. But I'm gonna install bcrypt. Yep, it's called bcrypt. So
I believe it's bcrypt.js.
okay.
I could be wrong though.
We'll take bcrypt.js then. So we'll take bcrypt.js, bcrypt.js, and then once we have that installed, what the heck is this timer crap? That might be internal stuff. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll just whenever I'm using the bcrypt to do the password hash, I'm gonna use a Mongoose version for that. So passport, godly, I'm missing something. All right. So passport, and then I think everything is the GitHub authentication. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy that. I'm gonna do that. Cool. Okay, that's fine. All right, so I'm gonna copy a lot of code here, and again, this at least gonna give you guys an overview of what this is happening. But I'm gonna explain you guys what I'm doing here for the sake of this. Okay. Now we're able to get the user password and email. Now what we're going to do is we're gonna first try to usually you can try to I'm sure that usually the way you search by user, it's by their email address. So I'm gonna get their email address instead. So I'm gonna say this one's gonna be email address. Like we want them to log in using their email address, and I want to make sure their email address is unique. So I'll say, hey, here I'm gonna get the email using the request body.email. So that's gonna be the user email, and then we're gonna search them into our database by using their email. So once we find them using their email, we're going to execute this callback. And what this callback is, it's just a function that we're gonna execute. If there is an error, this is where we're using our done function here. So we're gonna, instead of C, we're gonna say, hey, all right, if there's an error, send an error. If there is not an error, then send that user. So that means that let me see. So let me make sure I got that right. So if there is an error, send a user, and then send the error. If there is a user already, we don't need to create the user. So we're gonna send an error like that, and the error that we're going to send is this. We're gonna say something like probably just send something like that. User already exists, because we don't want to, if there is already a user, we don't want to register that user again. So we want to tell them, hey buddy, you're trying to sign up with somebody that already exists. And then if none of these check pass, then we're gonna initialize a new user, and this time we're gonna save their email, and then we're gonna get their password and encrypt their password. So we're gonna say encrypted password using bcrypt. I'm gonna bring bcrypt over here. So we're gonna say bcrypt bcrypt.js. And how do we do that? Documentation is always key, so let's find that out. Bcrypt.js. So copy this salt crap. Okay, so that's the salt. Replace that raw. Okay, so that's the hash. So all I need is this. So I'm gonna pass that hash there, and the way this one hash is, this is expecting you to pass the password, which we already have the password right there. So this is the password. So we got the encrypted password, and then we're gonna save that to our database using the encrypted password. Once we have that new user, then we save that new user, and then we're gonna call that done to send, and that done just in case there is not an error, and that should be our sign up case. Okay, so that should be our sign up case. Let's make sure that the sign up is working. Okay. All right. So now let's find out our routes. if I go back to my route, wherever I'm hitting that post, oops, yep, I think somebody got me. Line 16, yep, line 16 should be done. Thank you. Fantastic, you guys are killing it. All right, so if there is an error, I'm just gonna send them the error back. If there is not, let me see. So if the user's created, then I'm gonna send them that inserted user. I'm assuming that the user is gonna send them back. So I want to send them back that entire user. So if the user's created, just gonna send them that user. One thing to do here is I'm gonna delete the user password. So if I'm just gonna add breakpoints to try that out. I'm just gonna send them. If there is user, I'm just gonna send React or whichever places this entire user right here that's coming in. All right. If everything goes well, that should be working. Let's test it, and I'm really curious now to see if it works. Okay.
Replace the dot exec with dot then on line 11.
To turn it into a promise?
Yeah.
Let's leave it for now. I don't want to go with the whole thing with the promise yet. We'll do that if everything working fine. We got a timing that's clicking too. So let's hold on to this for now. And what I'll do is I'll add a breakpoint right there, and then one right here just to kind of test this one, and then this one here. Cool. All right, let's test that out. So when I hit that break, where's my postman? So when I hit that thing, okay, so okay, what's happening now? Okay, that's fine. Okay, send a user. All right, what's happening? I feel like all right, something went wrong. Okay, so something went really wrong. All right, so let's add a breakpoint right here, right there. And I'm gonna refresh this, and okay. All right, so we're just gonna stop right there to see. All right, so if I hit that again, God freaking Lee, God, I hate it, I love it. Something went really wrong with our strategy. Oops. All right, let's bring that up here. Okay, so here's our strategy. It's not even hidden this point. What happened here? Come on. So here's the request body. Did I did something wrong here? So we're hitting that point and then not even seeing this one working. Did I? Let me find my server. I'm using a Mongoose. I'm having a Mongoose issue. So I got this one should be connected to my database.
Is Passport expecting the username still?
No.
Maybe it's there because it's not getting it.
At least it should stop. At least it should stop right there. Like my breakpoint should stop right there, saying that that we have at least hit that route. Let me refresh. Let me bring that back here. Bring this one right there, like the way it was. Okay, so let's try that out. So if I hit this breakpoint, all right, God, it should be stopping. Come on, what happened to you guys? You were working earlier. Oh, it might be the bcrypt stuff, right? Because yeah, it might be the bcrypt stuff. Because this one, it might be failing right there. All right, bcrypt, please work. I'm not expecting you guys. All right, let's try it again. I'm just gonna. Okay. User is now authenticated, but it's not even hitting this endpoint. I thought it was hitting. Okay, I'm confused now in terms of where's my breakpoints working. There is not an error, but it should stop right there. It's not. Oh, I need to restart my whole server, does I? Okay, I don't know, but I'm just gonna go ahead and restart my server here. So if I go back to my breakpoints, I'm just gonna restart that. Because okay, restart, thank you. Yep. And then this one, we're gonna remove that. Okay, cool. Let's try to hit it again. God freaking Lee. It's not hitting my strategy. You gotta love it or hate it. Okay. But it's sending me not an error. Let me check my. Oh, do I have OneGuard warning? Do you have any error? Yep. Do I have OneGuard warning? Let's check. Yeah, I have OneGuard warning. Let me check my local database real quick. So I'm gonna check my local database, and my user was called. What was my database called? It was called.
Authentication.
Huh?
Authentication is called.
I'm sorry. What you said? Oh yeah,
No, you were asking. It's authentication or something. Yeah.
Yeah, authentication example. Yep. So it's called authentication example, which means that it hasn't saved anything to my database. So that's one debugging. Is that how you configure? You guys remember how you configure Mongoose? Is that how you configure it? Yeah, I think so. Okay. But one thing that's interesting, because it's not even hitting my strategy yet, because we should not be hitting that. First thing is, oh wait. Okay, I'm gonna try something else. I'm gonna copy this, all this code that I did, and I'm gonna just send a very basic thing. But again, I'm gonna send null because I'm sure it was hitting it. And then I'm gonna call happy path. All right, I'm gonna test that out. All right, so let's reload our breakpoints. Reload. Okay, so it should be hitting this at least. All right, so cool. Let's see. Okay, something just happened. I thought it was hitting it. What just freaking happened? God, you gotta hate this. Like it was working before, and just something just randomly happened. Okay, I'm just gonna comment these two bcrypt stuff that I added and see what's up. So I'm just gonna go here, refresh, and then I'm gonna add that. So we hit that, which send no error. God, freaking that's a sign-up strategy. I'm hating this. Okay, I'm gonna try one last thing. About. Okay, save, reload, and that should be hitting this one right there. So that should stop the program right there. Okay, let's try to hit that one again. Nope, it's hitting this one. Heavenly Father, please have mercy over me. Okay, so we're gonna
go to Postman for a second. I just want to see something.
Because I'm sending the right data.
Yeah, send a username too.
Yeah, let's send a username and see what's happening here. That might be right. God, come on, Passport. You don't. If Passport doesn't handle username, if you don't send them, that's just like a super. God freaking Lee, they don't handle if you don't send them username, they don't handle that. Who freaking send that code? If you don't send them username, they don't handle undefined. God, Lee, somebody needs to be fired. Right, not me, guys. That was definitely not an issue on our end. God, freaking Lee, they don't handle that. How come, like, oh my goodness, somebody needs to go into the code and do like a PO about that. Just if there is no, just throw an error or something. Okay.
You could just rename. Instead of username, you just say email and where you're passing in.
So you're saying we can do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that shouldn't change anything there, but then you'll get the email as the username.
So, but one thing we don't want, though, we don't want the username. We explicitly want the email. Because if you do that, I think that's going to represent the username. Let's find out. Let's add the breakpoints. So the fact that you add it like that, I think that should still be, because by default, there's two parameters that are coming here. They're going to be the username and email. Let's try that. So if I hover over that email, you see, it's equal to the username. So we don't want the username. We want the email. So that's why we added this one here to do that. So cool. All right. Passport. Thank you. God friggin' Lee. Who does that? The fact I didn't add the email. I thought that was crazy. All right.
I think there's a configuration for specifying the keys that you want to have, but
I think the way you do that is by passing the pass request. But again, the documentation is pretty big. There might be further things. That's just one way you can access more values to do that. So we could set the username anyway, but not in email as it. No,
Oh, that's what you have to do.
yeah,
Okay. I just found it.
cool. So
Well, the
link,
strategy takes a username and a password field. You can specify in a config a key called username field. And then the username field will be the field that you want to pass it as.
like such as, I think the other way you can do it is
So
the
camel case,
username,
username field.
and then you make it equal to the field that you want to pass
No,
it.
no, no, not username. Username field.
The username field like that.
And then
Yep, and then you pass it
But-
the.
yes, that's it. And then you
Email.
pass in email.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that should be one way, and then you could do the same thing for the password. I think it's password fields, and then you pass it the field that you want to pass. But for now, we're gonna go ahead. That's just one option. I think we can just use that one instead. So, Lindsay. So what was happening is I'll talk through this a little bit. So what happened is by default, Passport only understand your username field and the password. Okay. So to get the email, you can either do this, or to Julia's point, you can change the username field to equal to the email. So once you do that, then now this username here is gonna represent to the email. So this here gonna represent, so this field is not gonna represent the email. And then you can also change the password to be equal to some other fields, but that's just one way around it in order for you to get this working. So now if we test this out, I think that should work. Let's test this out. I'm really curious now and see. All right, so if I hit the endpoint, let's see what we got. So there is no error, that's good. And if we keep going, is there already a user? Nope, there is not already a user. And that should encrypt the password. Let's add a breakpoint right here. And let's see. And then let's check that out. Okay, you see the password is encrypted. That's cool. And then now that should continue to go. Is there any error saving it? There is no error saving it to the database. That's cool. And then now that should be the inserted things. But there's one thing here. You see how the password is coming in as a field, because you don't want to send the user password back, even though it's hashed to the client. So I'm gonna go here and delete it. There might be other way you can do that, but I'm just gonna go here and delete that password field because we don't want to send that password back to the client. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete it right there. By now we should at least have a user into our database called authentication example. And then if I try that and then click on that user, you see this is the user that I have with the email and password. So let's try. We already have the user, then that should throw us an error trying to save that user, saying that, you see, we already have the user. So this line should execute because the user already exists. And this is the error. And if we take a look at it now, where's our client? It sent us that, but we want it to be a clear message. So we're just gonna say error, or oops, something happened. There you go, something like that. If I refresh that and try it again, try to log in. Oops, sorry, click it again. Okay.
The way you have it, it's always going to be error because if the if statement will always be true.
Which one are you talking about?
Where you just changed for the message that you're sending back. It's always going to be error in this case because if line 11 is true, then it's going to be error.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I want because this is where I'm sending the error. Because this should not execute if there is not an error. Let's see. So now there is an error. You say user already exists. Then it's gonna send that message and then send us this one here. And also this one, I don't think we need this one. We can probably delete that. Okay, cool. So our sign up is working good. We can make sure that our user is only logged in once. They cannot log in twice. Let's try another user. Probably test email, something like that. Okay, so there's not an error. And there's not already a user. And our password should be encrypted once they hit that point. Of course, we missed it, but there's no error. Saving it to our database, and then it goes there, and you see there's no error, and then it's gonna send us this message back. That's what. Oops, godly, we don't want the password. I thought I deleted the password to not be sent. Yeah, I thought I deleted the password. Is that how you delete something from an object? Okay, we can hold that to that. All right, so we're gonna figure that out. I'll leave that to do for now. All right, because we don't want to send the user email. I think there's a way you can exclude things with Mongoose. You guys can figure that out. All right, so I'm gonna copy the same logic. Actually, I can just copy the logic I had for sign in. Where is the sign in strategy? Oops. I'm just gonna copy the same logic and bring it over the sign in strategy. So I'm gonna paste it right there. Cool. And then here we're gonna search the user by their email. But there is also an extra check that we're going to do. So I'm gonna bring this two things right there. Kind of here. All right. So we're gonna check and see if the user. And by the way, we're gonna also set we set the fields to equal to user field, such as pass it the email to get that value, and this one's gonna be equal to the email. Okay, if there is an error, we're gonna send an error. So the other thing we're gonna do is if there is not a user, we're gonna send no user found. Because if there is no user, then we expecting it to not be able to log in. Like if there is no user, they should not be able to log into our application. And then instead of encrypting the password, we're gonna set is password valid, because we're gonna check and see if their password is valid. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna check the existing password they have. I think the way you check that with bcrypt, let's find a documentation. Go here. And then where's bcrypt? This is how you do that using compare sync. I'm not sure which one is synchronous or not. God freaking the documentation is a mess. Compare sync. Oh, no. Which one am I needed? Yeah, I think that's the one that's async. Yep. So I'm gonna do that. Compare sync. Cool. So this is gonna return true or not, and we're gonna pass them the password that they're sending, and then with the hash. So that's gonna be user.password. So this is gonna take the user actual password and the hash, and gonna check and see if their password is valid. So if their password is valid, then that's when you wanna log them into the app. So if their password is not valid, we're gonna send them an error. Now for security reason, a lot of people send that password not valid. It is always best to send something that's hard, so that a hacker cannot really guess hey, I got the right emails, but now I just need to figure out that user password. So you make it a little bit harder for the hacker to guess. You can say email or password not valid. So this is just an easy way, like you know that this is what's happening, but the hacker doesn't know like which one they get right. So this is just an extra layer of security that you do here. So for that, I do not need none of that because I'm not saving a user. I think we missed to close our function. Okay, cool. And then once all this checked pass, then we're gonna, if everything passed, then we're gonna return the done, and then there's no error, and we're gonna send them the user. I think that should be our login. All right, lastly, once we have our strategy, if you guys remember, we need to authenticate with that strategy here. So we're technically gonna do the same thing here that we did, copy this function. Of course, this is a lot of redundant code. I'm sure you guys can come up with a better way to write this function to be a little bit dynamic. But for the sake of this, we're just gonna leave it like that for now, okay? So we're saying, all right, authenticate using the sign in. I think that's how I call my strategy. So if I remember, I call my strategy sign in. So I'm gonna go here and do sign in, and that should be the sign in for that. All right, the best way to do that is test it out. I hope it works. Please God, Heavenly Father, please help me. Okay, so how do we test that? So if I just make a copy of that, How do you make a copy? Duplicate. Yep. And then change this one to equal to sign in. I think that's how we have it. Yep, it's called sign in. So if I send the same thing, that should allow me to log in, because I think we already had a user like that. So let's try that. Yeah. Oh, I was able to log in. Let's add some breakpoints. That was too easy. Let's add some breakpoints to verify. All right. So here and here and here. First, I'm gonna say the wrong password. Again, this is an issue because you should not be sending the user password, even though it's hashed to the client. So let's send a wrong password. Just gonna remove the number 6. So that should be wrong password. Okay, it hits the error. No error finding the user. There is already a user. That's fine, but it's gonna continue. Let's see. It's gonna continue. Is the password valid? The password is invalid, which means false. So the password is invalid. Then we're gonna send a message saying that the password is not valid. You see, email and password is not valid. So that's working. That's cool. And then if we send that again, there's an error. Cool. And then this time it's gonna log in because everything is valid. Now if we try a wrong email, okay, see, let's see what this does. Let's try that. There is no user. And then it's gonna say no user found. So it is working as expected. Our login and sign up flow ready to go. You could either do user fields optional parameter to shrug, otherwise to just, yep, you could do a lot of things with that. Okay, cool. Now the backend is done. Time to hit the React part of it. Any questions so far in terms of how we were able to get the the login and sign up working? Any questions? We might go a little bit over time, a little bit, just to make sure that you're good. No, we should actually be like, once we get that, integrating the other session should be technically pretty easy. Like now the React stuff is good. The backend is done. All right. So any other questions before we jump into the React part of it? I'm assuming that the backend now should be making sense for everyone. If that's the case for you, please type yes in order for us to continue. Cool. That was fun. That was a lot of stuff going on. Okay, but we got it working. I'm really happy. And then let's see if we can get one more yes before we continue. Okay, cool. All right, so now we got the backend working. This is how we know how to hit it and stuff like that. Let's get the sign in. Let's send those data back to from React. So where is it? Where is it? So all right. So here's the login, and here's the sign up. So I'm gonna do a very basic form. All right. So we're gonna do a form, and then we think that we're just gonna have, sorry guys, there's not gonna be any CSS in there. Like seriously, no CSS. Like you guys can hit me. I'll be okay with that anyway. Oops. Let's close that. Just not gonna do any CSS for now. And then I'm just gonna add a button that said sign up, like very basic. Cool. And then here we're gonna send the name as email, and then the last one is going to be password, and then this one's going to be password. Lastly but not least, we're going to disable that, and then we're going to have a couple function called hello change, and again this is React, and then I'm going to have another one called hello submit. Again, there's a better way to write that. I'm just not going to go over that. Now, just for the sake of this, we're just gonna go ahead and whenever we submit this function, we're gonna run this function, and then whenever we are typing, this function is going to run. So we're gonna say on change, and then we're gonna find that, and then here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a very simple state that's gonna do the following. That's gonna have an email for now, empty, and then password that's going to be empty. And lastly, our handle change, what it's going to do is get the following. So we're going to get this one from event target, and then we're going to get what are we getting? So we're going to get the name and the value. And then after that, we're going to set the state with different value here. And then we're going to say this one going to be equal to the name and the value. Cool. Oops. Okay. All right. Lastly, once we get those data, so we're going to get those value from the state. And then here, we're going to get first thing, we're going to get the email. And then we're also going to get the password. Now we're going to use Axios to make that HTTP call. So we're going to say, all right, buddy, we bring Axios here. And then after we bring Axios, so we're going to go here and do that post. And then we're going to pass the URL of where we want to post it. The method is going to be a post. And then the data that we want to send, which is going to be, in this case, it's going to be equal to the email that we're sending. And then also the password. Cool. So that should all look good. And then one last thing I'd like to do is whenever we click this function, we want to disable the user event. So we're going to prevent default. Okay, cool. All right, cool. And then the URL of where this user is located, it was located under that URL. Which one is this? This is the sign up. So we'll do sign up. What was the sign up? So we're going to go here and oops, God, friggin' Lee. All right, so we're gonna go here over the sign up. So that should look good. All right, so React's working good. Just gonna copy this entire thing and go over the sign up. Actually, paste this entire thing in there. Sorry guys, we just gonna do that. And then this one's gonna be this login button. The same thing. The only difference is instead of handling the sign in, instead of posting over the sign in, we're gonna be posting over the sign in instead. The same process. The only difference is this one's gonna display login component, and then cool. And then the other one's gonna be displaying the sign up component. Oops. Cool. All right. So once we have that, okay, that's looking cool. It's looking fantastic. And then this is where the big questions comes into place, okay? After we post that, what do we want to happen, like whenever we got an error or a message? So this is where the core logic is going to be. So whenever we got a response back from our server, what do you want to do with that message? So for that thing, I'm more likely going to console logs for now, what the data that I'm getting, just for simplicity's sake, and then we'll focus on what you guys want to do with that data once we get it. So I'm going to add the response, and then here going to be the error. So I'm going to say error that response, something like that. We'll find out what this one, and this one's going to be an error, so we can probably copy that. A lot of boilerplate code, sorry guys, but a big fan of rewriting this thing up. All right, I think that should work. Okay, the only way to test that out is to test it. So let's try that out. So now if I go back into my client and the NVM starts, cool, let's see. So here's what I'm expecting to happen, okay? So let's try that. All right, so on the login, on the login form, I'm expecting to have that form that is going to input the username and email. So every time the user is tapping, I'm getting those value and set them into the states. And after I set them into the states, so whenever I click this function, what's gonna happen is first Axios is gonna post it to my server. If you guys remember, my server was handling that request on that route, just like we were testing in Postman. And then beside that, after that, I can, based on the response that I get, which either or not the user was successful, then I can feel free to either save or redirect the user to wherever I need that user to be. If there is an error, I can feel free to display them here and do anything that I want to do in that particular case, and so many other things, which is pretty straightforward. All right, so The only way to do that is test that out. I'm really scared now. I don't know what's gonna happen. All right, let's find out. Okay, so go to login. Then goes login. Cool. So here's our login. Let's open our network tab. Let's keep a track and see what's happening here. All right. So here's the login. We already had a user, and the user we have called testyahoo.com. The password was 12345 Now I want to enter the wrong password to log in. Okay, we got an issue because we are trying to send something over that route which doesn't exist. So we have an issue with the React stuff. Okay, that's weird because, oh, sorry guys, it's not Outpost, it's actually Axios, sorry. It's just Axios.ul. Godly, how come I didn't get that? Okay, so sorry, so it's just Axios. Okay, cool. All right, typing. All right, so that's out of the way. I was like, wait, what? All right, so let's try it again. So we got a user called test user Yahoo 12345 That's the right password. We're gonna enter the wrong password. So let's clear that out. All right, cool. It sounds like it hits our server. And it hits our strategy. So no error, fantastic. And then cool, it's gonna continue. But let's see what it sent back to. Oh, God. Oh yeah, because it sent an error. And let's see what we have back as a response. There you go. Email and password not valid. And let's try to enter the right email. And now we should be getting, instead of a 500 error, I think this should be 400 errors if we're sending like as a client server, like they sending us the wrong thing. So we can update that in a second. But let's try to log in with the right email. It hit our strategy. Everything was good. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, we got a 200 status, and that means this is what I was talking about. This is where this password hits the client's server, which is not ideal. So you should always try to, at all costs, to try to keep your user password onto your server. Don't send it to the client. Again, we can fix that, but for the most part, the integration with the React application, it is working, and it's a matter of once the user, if I go back to the login, so instead of me console logging this, I'm just gonna use the React router. I don't really even know which one is it. You guys know how to push something? I think it was, how do you push something using the React router? I haven't used that thing for a long time. We can Google that, but how do you redirect something? Like push, I know there was a push something. Oh, I think it's this.prop something. All right, I think it's, let's find that out. Hold on. So I'm gonna go to login component. Let's find, I don't remember. So I'm gonna add, I'm gonna add a breakpoint right there. Okay, cool. So if I type something, cool. All right, so let's see. So this props, so the way you push is using the history, and then you do push. All right, so what we'll do is we'll do this.props, that history, that push. Cool. So whenever the user log in, then we're gonna push them to the route that we want. So we'll do this.props, that history, that push. I think that was it. Let's see. And then we want to push them to the profile page. This is where we want the user to go when they log in. And then, of course, you can decide of where the user want to go once they sign out. All right, so I'm going to try that out. So this user should go to the login. All right, let's see. So we got this.props, that history, and then we're using the push method from it. Okay, that should be cool. And then we're gonna do the same thing for the sign up. And then we're gonna, sorry, if the users successfully sign up, we want to send them to the profile page as well. So we're doing two things: log in and sign up. All right, cool. Now if I refresh this, the user should be going to the profile page once they log in. Let's find that out. All right, so let's see. So write email, and then 12345 that's the right user. So we hit our back strategy. I know for now it's working, so I can just go ahead and speed that process up. So I'm gonna go here and see, and boom, and ladies and gentlemen, I am in the profile page. But let's check and see when I enter a wrong email, does it still take me to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it should still leave me to the profile page. But however, I'm getting something back from my server. Of course, let me hit that again. But I'm getting something back from my server that said, hey, the response is not valid. Like you're getting an error because the email or password is not correct. And of course, you can feel free to display that error however you want to into your database. So what we can do in this case is want to do that extra step, but you guys can definitely get the error from here and display it into the component state. Actually, I can just do that right now, just for the sake of this. And then we're just gonna say error message for you guys to see. And we'll save that into our state. Oops, godly error message, and then we'll leave this one empty for now. And what we do is whenever there is an error, so we're gonna, I'm not sure how you can do that. So I think they state that, and then we're gonna get error message, and then I think you do error, let's verify. So login, so where's my error? So this is my error, overload, where's it? Okay, cool. So if I enter wrong email, same email, wrong password, let's see what it comes. So here's the error. The error comes as request.response. So we'll do, what is it? Error that response that what? Response that data. Okay. That data that message. Cool. So that should be able to get the, what is it? Data. All right, yep. That should be able to get the message that's coming in. All right, cool. So that should display it somewhere inside our state. Let's save that and let's try that. Cool. Let's see if that works. So if I do test Yahoo and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's wrong email. And oops, I got an error. What is that crap? Sign in. Wait, thought I had an error. Oh, wait, what? Oh, that's the sign up. So I need to do that same thing into the sign in. I'm like messing around, so I just need to do that. I was like, wait, what's happening? Okay, cool. So I need to do the same thing on there. So I'm just gonna copy this code. Again, guys, you can think about a better way to refactor this, but for the sake of this, I'm just gonna really add some sort of messy code to get this a course. Cool. So let's try that. So now the login should be working as well. I don't know why. How did I do that change inside the sign up? Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wrong password. If I try that, you see what it said: email or password not valid. So this is how you use Passport with React to handle your entire authentication and really making sure that things are working exactly the way you want it by using custom callback and different things to do so many things. And of course, one thing that you can do, I'll take another 15 minutes to integrate another strategy just to show you how easy it is. The other thing that you can do for the sake of this is you can once you know the user's login, then you can save that user information to local storage so that throughout your React application you can secure routes and you can limit certain access to different routes and so other things. I'm gonna walk you guys through another strategy because of the time. We'll be able to integrate the other strategy, but because of the time, there are a lot of things that we were not able to do, such as persistent login, as it require extra steps in order to get that working. But I'm definitely going to integrate another strategy just to kind of show you guys how it is to integrate other strategy or how easy it is. But before we move any further, any questions about our login and sign up system? Give me 1 second. Correct. So that's one option. You can use local storage to store that into local storage and then get the data and protect the route. Oops. Sorry, guys. Yes, that's correct. You can use local storage to technically protect the data and making sure that you can protect different routes. So we got two options before we end this. We can either try to integrate a new strategy such as either Google or GitHub. I would go with Google for simplicity's sake, or you guys can feel free to choose to pick how to secure routes in React with this whole process, because the login and sign up is completely done. So you got 2 minutes to pick either one. So the options are, we can try to show you guys how to secure certain routes and do not allow everybody to access that routes unless they log in, or we can either try to integrate a new strategy such as Google. Yes, so yes, you can do token on the express routes, which you're gonna use that one as a cookies. Uh, I think this is definitely gonna extend to another session. Just focus on the whole thing. But let's do this. I think it's killing the time. All right, so let's do this. Let's try to show you guys some of the things that you can do to know that the user is logging. Like, let's try to do persistent login for the sake of this, okay? So we're gonna leave everything apart. We're gonna leave the Google strategy and the other things. You guys can feel free to mess around with them. But let's try to do persistent login because we have that question. We're gonna try to do persistent login. For this one, I'm gonna use JSON Web Token. If you haven't used that before, definitely check that out. But this is the package that I'm gonna be using to do persistent login. So I'm gonna try that. And then for this one, I'm also gonna use the cookie session that I use, because for this one, we're not using a session. So we're gonna try to do persistent login. Let's try to see how we can do that. Okay. So our React application is done for now. Okay. So React is completed. Let's focus on the app. We're gonna bring all right, so if you guys remember, wherever we configure React, this is the session that we comment that one out. So we're gonna uncomment this one because we're gonna try to do persistent login in this. To use our passport session, we definitely need to use either express session or cookie session, whichever one that felt comfortable with you guys. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna use the cookie session. Cookie, wait, what the heck is that crap? Oh, I was in the dependency. All right, cool. So I'm gonna use this one first. Bring that cookie parser inside your code. So I'm gonna bring that one somewhere here, and you guys can feel free to refactor that down the line. Last but not least, I need to configure it using this one. So I'll do app.use cookie session. So it just a lot of boilerplate code. And I'm gonna actually comment this one out. I think by default it also include the cookie parser, so we don't need that line. By default it also include that. So this one is the session name. For this one, I'm just gonna leave it as default, and I think that should be it. That should be the main thing for you to configure your session with cookie session. So instead of cookie parser, we don't need that. All right, so let's see. So we bring the cookie session, and we also bring the cookie session here. So these are the two things that we've done. Okay, cool. And then we're gonna need to do some adjustment onto the routes, because now that we have a session, there's a couple of things that we're going to do. So wherever you have the authenticate, if there is no error, there's an extra step that you're going to have to do. The fact that you're not using a session. In this step, I think it's request.login. Can do it with capital N. And this login, I believe, takes a function. We can feel free to Google that. And this takes an error. And then this takes the data in case that everything went well. So again, this is only required if you guys using persistent login. Okay, and we're just gonna say if there is an error, and again, guys, there's a lot of boilerplate code here. If there is an error, we're technically gonna do the same thing as if we were doing for that. So if there is an error, we're just gonna go here and just return that message. So if there is not an error, just gonna go here and return a JSON. Oops, this one we're just gonna send the user. Just be mindful that the user password is exposed. You can fix this way. You can run a SQL, not a SQL, a Mongoose query to exclude the user password. But for the sake of this, we're just gonna leave it for now. All right, so because we're using persistent login, this one is required, okay? So we're gonna say, all right, use request login. If there's an error, do that. If there's not an error, don't send the user password to the client, something like that. Cool. And then we're technically gonna do the same logic for the other ones. So I'm just gonna copy. I hate that, guys, but hey, based on time, we don't have a lot of choice. So there's a lot of redundant code here that I hate. So this entire function could be done into one dynamic function that could handle both cases. But for the sake of this, I just wanna go ahead and just copy and paste the same thing over just to show you. I think we're missing something. What are we missing? Wait, what happened? What happened? Okay, so I'm just gonna go here and copy this, and then replace it with that. What's happening? I feel like I have an error. Okay, I feel like I'm missing something. Okay, so let's see, what do we get from here? Oh, this, okay, this is the whole thing. Cool. So I'm gonna come here and do that. Cool. Okay, so what should happen is the fact that now we're using a session inside our app.session here, then what we're trying to do is instead of just sending the user back, there's an extra step. So we have to use the request.login, which accept a callback, and then send the user back to the client. So let's try that. And we're gonna reload our breakpoints. We're gonna add a breakpoint here, and then a breakpoint there. We're gonna do the same thing for that. The breakpoints there. I'm really hoping it works. All right, cool. Let's try that. So I should enable our session. Let's see. So I'm just gonna hit Postman for now, for simplicity's sake. No user found because I put a wrong email. Okay. All right, we got an issue. Let's see. Oh, what's happening here? Let's find here. All right, so what's the issue? Middleware is not, passport initialized middleware is not in use. I don't think we did change the passport middleware that initialized. I think this one needs to first happen. Okay, so let's change it with, how was it? All right, so we got the passport initialized, and then we have the session. Let's see, where's the documentation? All right, so passport initialized first, and then the passport session happened. Yep, so let's try that again. Wow, a debugger. Okay. Let's try that. Hit that endpoint. Still got an error. Passport initialized middleware not in use. Okay, hold on. Let's try the cookie parser stuff. Yeah, I'm using that right. Okay, let's try an example that I did. So here's one example I did. I'm gonna go to that example here. And if I click on that example, I should be able to see how I configure that. Okay, so what I did was I passed that session, like that's an expiration date, that's fine. And then I passed the passport initialize, and then the passport session before the routes. Got it. So where are the routes? Yep, there you go. So you need to pass this two thing here. All right, let's try that. Cool. Loads. Yep. Let's try that. God, I'm hitting the right endpoints. Require. Okay, that's a different error, which is cool. So we had to move that one before the routes. Okay. So the second error, login requires a callback. Let's see what we had. So login require callback. That's what I did. So maybe it's just a function. Let's just try function here. Okay. So require login, require callback function. That's what I did. Probably they're using this on their end or something, and then it's not working for them. So let's just use typical function. Okay, and then try that, and then try it again. Okay, what's the error here? All right, let's just see how I did that. So if I go back to my example, I think I did passport. No, it's inside the routes. So if I go into routes and then go to authentication routes, so I do request log. Oh, it takes the user object. Sorry guys, my bad. All right, so the request login takes the user object. So if I search into the documentation somewhere, request login, I don't know where to search for that honestly, but it takes the user. Cool. That was what I was missing. And let's just turn this into a normal function. I think the error first. Let's verify. So error first. Nope, just the error. Cool. And let's remove that. Cool. And then we don't need that here too as well. Cool. All right. So we adjust that to pass it the user first and then a function. Fantastic. Let's test that. Our session should be working. Okay. Okay, that's good. So we hit this endpoint, which we said, which we got this error, we fails to serialize. And by the way, if you're using a session, serializing, you definitely need to have that. So that's one error that we have. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that. And to get the serialize working, again, if you guys remember, we had a specific folder. We had a specific folder that we could do any passport configuration. And that folder is the passport. So if we go inside the index, this is where we're going to do our serialized thing here. So if we go over the passport section, not this one, for this one here, we're gonna go ahead and where's the serialized example they have? And not this one, the passport. God believe, where's passport? There you go. So where's the serialized example? Come on, passport, where are you? Oh, I thought I see it. Yep, there you go. So here's the serialized example. Okay, and we're gonna add that one above here. So what is serialized, right? And lastly, I'm gonna use the user model, which is gonna be equal to go back to the model, and then all of that is for persistent login. I bring the user. All right, cool. So what is the serialized model? Well, the serialized model, what this is going to do for you is this is going to add the user into Passport as a session. So whenever you are using Passport, there is a session inside the request object, which I'm going to show you guys. This is the one that's going to add the user to the session, okay? And serialize, what serialize is, this is going to say, all right, whichever routes that the user go to, every single routes that the user go to, then we're going to try to first check and see if that ID is inside a section. So every single routes that the user is going to, we're going to check and see if it contains the ID that we had previously added to our serialize. So the whole process of serializing is adding, and then deserializing is trying to add that ID. To illustrate this point, I'm going to add a breakpoint right here, okay? And I'm going to add another breakpoint right here. And lastly, I'm going to add another breakpoint right here. And I'm going to reload the code just to kind of show you guys what this is doing, okay? All right, and I don't think this is going to be the ID. We'll find that out. We'll see. So let's see. So let's try that. So when I try to log in, you see it hit the serialize. But if I take a look at the object that is coming in, I do not have an ID. And by the way, guys, the serialize, you can add anything into the serialize as a way for it to search things for your user. By default, they're expecting you to pass the ID, but we don't have the ID coming in. What we have is the email. So instead of adding the ID into the serialize session, I'm gonna add the email instead. So I'm gonna remove that email and add that email. And this one, okay, that should be good. So I'm gonna reload my code and try it again. So when I click that, oops, my code's reloading. There you go. So now it's gonna get that user object and pick the email and add this email into the passport session itself. Again, if you remember, Passport has a session that it add all of that key that is stored for that unique user. So how can we verify that? So I'm going to open my breakpoints and I'm going to show you where this value is being stored. Okay, so after it add that to the serialize, then it's going to try to add it to the serialize. Then if there's any error, then it's going to do that, and it's going to send a JSON back. Okay, and then that's one thing. And send a JSON back. Cool. And then it send the user. But check this out. Whenever I hit that request again, the first thing that it's going to do, like this is the key right there. Okay, this is the most important thing. This is where things get interesting. Whenever Passport adds something to their session, their key, it could be their email or unique identifier for that particular user. Every single request that you make to the server, the first thing it's going to hit is going to hit the deserialize. Okay, it's going any request moving forward, any request inside the code, or not inside the code, any request you make to your server, it doesn't matter if it's what I'm talking about is this. I'm going to show you. So if I had another route called get, and I'm gonna pass this one a request, a response, and I'm gonna send a response back. User, I'm gonna add something called message and say hello world, and this one's gonna be /API, something like that. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. Okay, remember something was added previously inside the express session. I'm gonna show you where it's at, but before that, there is a route. This doesn't have anything to do with Passport. Nothing with Passport. Okay, and if I try to go to that route, I'm going to try to duplicate. Okay, and this one is API, and this one is a get. So if I try to go to this route, check this out. When I click send, you see it first go and try to deserialize this user. So by default, as long as a user is added into the session, any request that you make to your server, it's going to try to deserialize it first. And then after it deserializes it, if it finds that user, it just send it back and stuff like that, so that it knows that this was a user that was already logged in. You don't need to log in. We already have a user for you. I'm going to do that. Click continue. And then of course I'll see the whatever this is. Of course it couldn't be able to find that into my database. No, what happened here? Cast object ID fell for value. Okay, let's find that ID. We try to find that. Okay, let's just hit it again. Get. Okay, I'm gonna just click it fast and see what happened. Yeah, I still get the same issue. Okay, cool. Let's see. So I'm gonna add a breakpoint right there. So I got the ID, and then it's trying to find things by ID. So it's not actually an ID. So we need to try to change our query because it's an email. So we're gonna try to do change email. We're gonna try to do change email, and this one's gonna be an email instead of the ID. So it was trying to find something by ID, which in reality is not the ID that's coming in. So we're gonna try to search things by the emails, and then what we'll do in this case is we're gonna use a promise thing. Is Mongoose a promise thing? You guys know it's Mongoose except promise? Anybody know? I'm hoping it does. Can I do that? Is that legal? Okay, I'm hoping it is. I'm really hoping it is. So we adding the email, we're searching by the emails instead of ID. So if we try that again, okay, searching by the email. The email is added done right here, and then we'll hit that. Yep, and then it find that user by the email. There you go. So it find that user by the email. Cool. Well, let's see. Did it got? Yep, it find that user by the email. Yep, there's a user, and then it sends something. Did it send something back? What's happening here? It should be sending something back. Okay, it's not. All right, let's try to hit that again. Deserialize should send it to the next object. Do you guys know if that's legal? Wait, Mongoose, is that? I can't remember if it's accept promises or not. Okay. So we're missing something here because the request keep handling, and it shouldn't be handling. It should be sending something straight like that. Like that's the API, just send something straight. Let me see if it's even hitting this route. So let's try that. Okay, cool. So let's try that. So we deserialize that user by the email, and then we're gonna send that as for it to proceed, but it doesn't hit that routes. Okay. So after it deserialize, it's not even hitting this route. We needed to do something else. I feel like I'm missing something because after it deserialize the user, it should every route it's hitting that specific request, which is just API. So it's not even hitting this route. Am I doing something wrong here? Probably. Let's just reload. Okay. And then if I hit that get API route, okay, that's fine. It deserialized the user. Okay, that's fine. But it should go to the next step, but it's not going to the next step. And the next step is, hey, we already know who you are. Oh, let's just continue. That's weird. Okay, so let's try to, we're gonna try it one more time. Okay, if there's an error, I do that. It doesn't have to do anything with the sign up and login. So what it needs to happen is, hey, I'm only hitting that route. And when I hit it, after I deserialize it, should be able to use that done and finish with it. Hold on, let me find one. Okay, so this one was using that. So I'm just gonna use the callback section. So I'm just gonna use that one here. So I'm just gonna do that. Okay, cool. So instead of that, it's gonna be that sec. How am I using that? Callback. And then after that, okay, cool. So I'll do cool. And then I'll paste this function in there. Cool. Cool. Let's just replace that by this. It might be easier. All right, so let's try that. So deserialize and then continue. Hit. Yep. For some reason, I don't know. It was doing something weird with my deserialized thing for some reason. For some reason, Mongoose wasn't executing exactly the way it was. Okay, cool. And then let's try it again. That. Oops. Of course, it's loading. There you go. Hit that. And then, of course, it goes to the next route. So I was having a Mongoose issue for some reason. I don't know with promises, if we accept promises on something, but I was having some Mongoose issue where it wasn't working as expected or something. But yeah, so that should first the All right. So when you're making a request to the slash API endpoint, do you also pass through the email in the header? No. So hold on. So what we're serializing is the email. So we can access that from the session. So if we want to get, for example, in the where is it? In the API route. So if I want to get access to the email that is inside the session, yes, I can. And let me show you how we can do that. So now I'm going to hit it again. Cool. So we're first going to try to deserialize that user. And then second, if you take a look at here, if I look at the request object that is right here, you see wherever it said rec. So when I open that, if I go all the way down, wherever it has session, if I click that, and you see over the session, if you take a look at the session, there's something here called passport. And this is the thing that is inside the session. So every request, whenever you serialize something, everything is going over that session under the passport. And if I want to be able to access it, I can just do request that user. I think that's how you access it using Passport. I think they have that available for you to access that session. I think that's how they have it. However, if that doesn't work, you can just do request session and then passport that session. That should be able to go and get that session for you. But let's see if this works, okay? So I'm gonna save that and then refresh. And let's see. And oops, it's loading. Cool. All right, I try to deserialize and let's see. Oh, sorry. So no, it actually add the entire user for you. Okay, let me explain that. Sorry. So to get that particular email, then this is how you get that particular email. However, you see this line right here, like this particular line. So this line is of course, it first trying to search the user on the database. Then after it finds that user, and it makes the user available over request that user. So this entire line, it is the callback that is going to be responsible to make this entire user available over request that object, so that into any routes that you are, you can just do request that route and you can get that user to your database and stuff like that. So this, again, this serialized thing, this is the one that's making the user available over that request that object. But however, if you just want to get the emails, you can get it from the session, or you can just get it from the user object like this, because this is gonna go and search the user and make the user available over that request object for you. Does that answer to your question, Timmy? Cool. All right, I think this is done. The backend work is done for the persistent login, okay? Welcome to Passport. Now, what next? Before we go to the next thing, let's just review what we talk about, okay? So if we remember in the app.that session, we configure the cookie session, that's with the express session, to know that, hey, we're about to use a session inside Passport. We show you ways that you guys can feel free to use it without the session. And then after that, I need to update my routes in order for it to handle persistent login. So if I go back to my routes, I have to use the request.login. You only use that function for persistent login, and it takes the user object, and then you can see it in case there's an error, and then send something back after you get the response back, okay? So this is the update needed for the session. All right, so now let's try to log in again. So if I try to log in, okay, hit that deserialize, that's fine. And then of course we're trying to log in, and this is, by the way, this is the one that's going to execute to add it to the session. So this is the one that's execute, and that's when the serialize fire, because we're trying to use the request.login, which is the one that actually add the user to the session. So that's why it does that. And then now, oops, what else? What else? Where's the next breakpoint? All right. Of course, it finished adding the user, and then we're gonna send that user back. And there you go. I'm able to see that user back into my app. So one thing that we can do, one thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add an extra property called isAuthenticate. I'm gonna send that to true, just a way for the React application to know that this user has been authenticated, or something like that. Cool. So now we should be seeing an extra property from the request object. So let's try that. And then we're gonna say, click that. And of course, it's gonna try to deserialize, and then we try to log in, which serialize the user. And then after it's serialized, we check and see if there's an error, then send something back. And we should see that extra property over there. Now, this extra property is going to be what React is going to see. But before that, let me show you something real quick, okay? This is what the cookie session is doing for you. If I go to the Will app and try to log in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's the right password. Of course, it's gonna hit all of that. So by now, serializing should be making sense for you guys and all of that. So let's see. So check this out. I'm logging, but if you take a look at the not the network tab, the app performance, and I go over cookie, this is what the cookie session is doing for you. The cookie session is the one that knows that, you know, hey, we have a user in the session and stuff like that, okay? Now, to illustrate this point, let me see how I can clear my cookie inside Postman. How do you clear cookie inside Postman? Oh, cookie, and then is there a clear button? Yep, okay, there you go. That's good. Now, if you guys remember, whenever I hit the get endpoint, I thought I logged in earlier. All right, so hold on. So let me try to log in from Postman and show you when I clear my cookie what happened. So okay, cool. No, I think I didn't add a breakpoint into here. So let's add a breakpoint. So if you guys remember, every single time that I hit the get route, it's gonna go straight to the deserialize, right? Hey, buddy, we know you already log in. Let's try to deserialize you and stuff like that. But check this out. If I clear my cookie from Postman, and I remove that, cool. And then I'm gonna go here. So if I try to do that, you see, it go here, but it doesn't go to the deserialize because it doesn't know that I had previously logged in. So all the cookie session that we configure into, where is it? All the cookie session that we configure here, it is the one that is actually doing this entire job. And the entire job is adding a cookie to the user browser so that whenever the user come back, it knows exactly who they are. And by the time that they come back, then we can instantly log them into the app. So for the sake of ours, what we're doing here is this. We're sending something back from the React team, like something like is authenticated. Okay, so we saying, all right, just get the is authenticated as a way for you to know that the user has successfully logged in. But how can we use that into the React application? There is a tons of way that you can use it. The way that I'm going to use that to automatically log the user in is this. So where's my React application? Before I go into React, any questions? Does that make sense for everyone? What we're doing in the backend? If that makes sense, please type yes. And we about to wrap that into like 5-10 minutes. Cool. Fantastic. And then, all right, yeah, we got, let's get one more yes, please, before we proceed. And let's see who can say that. Cool, all right. So now we're saying that we've done persistent logging into the backend using the serialize and everything like that into the client. Remember, we're sending an extra property here called is authenticated to the client. So what we're going to do inside the React application is this. That's the worst code I've ever wrote because I was trying to be a little bit fast. But what we're gonna do here is this. First, try to get that specific data is authenticated. And we're gonna get it from the response.data that is authenticated. I think that's how it's coming in. Let's find out. Yep, so it's coming from is authenticated. And then after we get, so every time that the user log in, we just gonna go here and save that to local storage, something like that. We're gonna set local storage. Oh, God, no. How do you guys set something into local storage again? Is it local storage and then set? I don't want to look that up. I think it's set and then you set the value. Is that right? Godly. All right, we're just gonna roll with it. Let's see if it add that. Oh, God, thank you. Thank you. Set item. Okay, got it. It's okay. Oh my God, like I've never used that thing for so long time. Okay. Yep. So we're gonna set that, and then I'm assuming that it takes. Yep. We could say is authenticated. We're gonna set that one as the value. So we're gonna set that before we go, before the user come here. We're gonna say, all right, let's authenticate that user. Of course, there is better way that you can do it, but the goal behind this is getting that value back from your backend as a way to know that this user has previously logged in. Okay. So once I get that token, I save it to local storage whenever the user log in, and then we send that user back to the home page. Now, one thing we want to do is whenever the user hit the home page, I don't even know which one should be the home page at this point, but let's pick one for our local store, our home page. So I'm gonna consider this one as the home page. Which one? I don't know. Whichever we should consider as the home page, but whichever the home page or wherever you want the user to automatically log in, this is where you can target. For this one, I'm gonna target this one actually. So I'm gonna target this one. So I'm gonna say on component did mount. Again, that's not the perfect example. There's a lot of code that I could rewrite. So first thing we're gonna get is we're gonna get the value that we have previously set from the local storage, and I'm assuming that you do get item, something like that. And then we're gonna get that value. And then after we got that value, we're gonna say, all right, if this user is authenticated, then we're gonna send them straight to instead of the component did mount, because we don't want like a weird effect to happen. So one thing we don't want, because component did mount is gonna finish loading the page and then it's gonna try to execute the component did mount. So we don't want that. We want it to happen before the user see anything. So we're gonna add that inside the render. So inside the render, we're gonna try to get that value. So we're gonna try to get this authentication value. Sorry, if the user is authenticated, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna redirect the user, and for that I'm gonna use something from the React router called redirect. React router redirect, something called redirect, and we're gonna say, all right, buddy, we're gonna use redirect here, and then we're gonna send them. If the user is authenticated, we're instantly gonna redirect them to the profile page. All right, and then if the user is not, then we let the user go to the login. So this is just a fallback. So if the user is authenticated, finish the page by redirecting. Oops. Yep. So that's get item. Yep. So if the user is not authenticating, then if it's authenticated, we're gonna strictly send them to the profile page. If not, then we're gonna just render the login components. I think that's it. Yeah. All right, so here we set the user once we get a response back from the React, and then yeah, cool. Okay, let's try that. I'm really hoping that works. And then the other thing that we can do on the other, okay, we can try that. Okay, hold on. So let's go back to login. Okay, so I'm gonna try to now log in successfully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Of course, I'm gonna disable that because it's gonna be annoying because every request gonna hit that endpoint. So we know for sure all of that's working. So let's remove these endpoints. That's cool. Okay, so it goes to the home component. But now if I try to go to login, it should instantly redirect me to the profile page. Look at that. So if I try to go back to login page, boom, it knows I'm logged and it sent me back to the profile page. Try it again. Boom. And it sent me back to. How cool is that? And again, this is not the ideal version of this entire code, but here's what I really want you to get from this, okay? What I really want you to get from this is the following. Number one is you understand how to properly communicate to write Passport so that you can send response back and forth to your React application so that your React application knows that, hey, this user is authenticated or this user is not authenticated. And then based on that, React can decide either to, number one, protect the route, number two, to redirect the user to wherever you want them, or number two, to limit access to whatever they can access based into which person is authenticated or which person is not authenticated. And ladies and gentlemen, any questions? See, if there isn't any question, this is everything I had for you guys. Of course, it's been a long journey in terms of so many things that we had to do. We went over a little bit. Thank you guys for